Commander J1 Park stood at the viewing window of the Earthship Horizon Dawn. The stars looked different from here, at the edge of their solar system. After centuries of wondering if they were alone in the universe, humanity finally had their answer.
"Commander, the Confederation fleet is approaching," said Hannah Kim, her voice steady despite the tension in the command center.
5 vessels. All larger than ours. J1 nodded. Show me.
The main screen filled with the image of sleek ships, their hulls shimmering with materials unknown to Earth science. They moved with precision that spoke of advanced technology, forming a perfect escort formation around the human vessel.
"They're hailing us," Hannah said. "Open the channel."
A face appeared on screen, vaguely humanoid but with blue-tinted skin and eyes too large and too dark. The alien spoke, its words translated by the system the Confederation had provided weeks earlier during initial radio contact.
"Earth vessel. Follow our guidance to the diplomatic station. Deviation will be considered hostile." J1 exchanged glances with Hannah. The tone wasn't what they had hoped for from humanity's first alien allies. "Understood. We will follow your lead," he replied. The journey to the station took 3 hours. The crew used this time to review their diplomatic instructions.
Earth's governments had united for this mission, setting aside old conflicts in the face of this new reality. The docking procedure was automatic, their ship guided by unseen forces into a massive hangar.
"Remember," J1 told his team as they prepared to disembark, "we represent all of humanity today."
The diplomatic party consisted of 5 humans, J1, Hannah, 2 scientists, and a cultural specialist. They stepped through the airlock into an atmosphere that smelled slightly of cinnamon and copper.
The receiving area was filled with beings from at least 7 different species.
Some walked on legs like humans, others moved on tentacles or floated slightly above the ground. The diversity was stunning, but the expressions on faces where expressions could be read were uniform, cautious, evaluating, and strangely tense.
A tall figure stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Zeal of the Galactic Confederation Council. You will follow me." No welcome. No ceremonial greeting. J1 maintained his diplomatic smile but felt uneasy.
The meeting chamber was circular with rising tiers of seats filled with representatives from dozens of species. The humans were directed to stand in the center, like specimens under examination.
"Earth has been monitored since your first radio transmissions, a large insectoid being announced. Your application for recognition is being processed." "We are honored to join the galactic community," J1 replied.
"Earth looks forward to peaceful exchange of." "Earth will be granted observer status only," interrupted another representative, this one with translucent skin through which organs pulsed rhythmically. "Your species is young and has much to learn before full participation."
Hannah stepped forward. "With respect, we hope to discuss trade opportunities and technology exchange."
The chamber filled with a sound like hissing laughter.
"Your territory will be restricted to your solar system," the blue-skinned ambassador said. "Technology transfers will be minimal and supervised. These restrictions are standard for primitive species." For 3 hours, the humans listened as the Confederation outlined what amounted to a quarantine of Earth. They would be allowed limited contact with other worlds.
Their ships could not venture beyond their own system without permission.
No advanced weapons technology would be shared.
During a brief recess, J1's team gathered in a small antechamber.
"This isn't first contact," the cultural specialist whispered. "This is a cage being built around us. Did you notice how some of them look at us?" Hannah asked. "The smaller ones especially. It's not contempt, it's fear." J1 had noticed. Several species seemed nervous in their presence, flinching when humans moved too quickly. As they prepared to return to the chamber, a small green-skinned aide approached J1.
The creature pressed something into his hand, a small crystal data device, then whispered in halting English rather than using the translator.
"They know what you really are. Find the truth on Mars."
Before J1 could respond, the aide hurried away, blending into a group of similar beings. Later, as the Earth delegation returned to their ship with their new observer credentials and a list of restrictions longer than their list of privileges, J1 examined the crystal in his private quarters. It contained only coordinates on Mars and one phrase: "The architects will rise again." J1 didn't understand the message, but the fear he had sensed from some of the Confederation members now made more sense. They weren't afraid of what humans might become. They were afraid of what humans once were. Dahyun Lee wiped sweat from her forehead as she carefully brushed dust from the strange metal panel. The Martian sun cast long shadows across the dig site through the dome's transparent sections. 6 weeks had passed since they discovered the structure buried deep beneath the red soil, and with each passing day, the discovery became more puzzling. "Taeho, could you bring the scanner over here?" she called to her colleague. Taeho Khan looked up from his workstation and grabbed the handheld device. "Found something new?" "Maybe. This panel has different markings than the others." The archaeological team had been sent to Mars after Commander J1 Park shared the mysterious data crystal and its coordinates with Earth authorities. What they found was beyond anything they had expected. A vast complex of metallic structures that carbon dating suggested was at least 50,000 years old. Taeho crouched beside her and ran the scanner over the newly uncovered panel. "These symbols, they almost look like early human writing, but that's impossible." "Nothing seems impossible anymore," Dahyun said, thinking of the aliens from the Confederation who now had a small observation post in Earth orbit. "Not since we learned we're not alone." The scanner beeped, drawing their attention. "Energy readings," Taeho said, surprise in his voice. "After all this time, something's still active in there." Dahyun traced the edge of the panel with her finger. Without warning, it slid open, revealing a dark space beyond. Both archaeologists jumped back. "Should we call the others?" Taeho asked, looking toward the main camp where 3 other scientists were cataloging artifacts. Dahyun shook her head. "Let's take a quick look first." They switched on their helmet lights and peered into the opening. It was a small chamber with walls covered in the same strange symbols. In the center stood a pedestal with what looked like a hand-shaped impression. "Some kind of control mechanism?" Taeho suggested. Dahyun moved closer, drawn to the pedestal. "Look at this, the proportions of the handprint are exactly human." "That can't be right. Humans weren't on Mars 50,000 years ago." "Then who built this?" Dahyun asked, reaching toward the impression. "And why does it seem made for us?" "Wait." Taeho grabbed her arm. "We don't know what it does." Dahyun hesitated, then gently pulled away. "That's why we're here, isn't it?" "To find out." Before he could protest further, she placed her palm on the depression. The fit was perfect. For a moment, nothing happened. Then light erupted from the walls, filling the room with a blue glow. Dahyun tried to pull her hand away but couldn't move. "Dahyun!" Taeho shouted, reaching for her. "I'm okay," she gasped. "But I can see. I can see everything." Images flooded her mind, massive ships traveling between stars, sprawling cities on planets she didn't recognize, technology beyond anything humanity had dreamed of. And people. Humans, or beings that looked exactly like humans, at the center of it all. As abruptly as it started, the connection broke. Dahyun stumbled backward into Taeho's arms. "What happened?" "What did you see?" he asked, helping her sit on the ground. "Memories," she whispered. "Not mine. The machine's. Or maybe the memories of whoever built it." Over the next hour, they called in the rest of the team. One by one, each member of the expedition connected with the device. Each saw the same visions, a vast civilization that spanned the galaxy, with humans at its heart. They called themselves the Architects. "It doesn't make sense," Minwoo, the team leader, said afterward. "According to these memories, humans ruled the stars thousands of years ago. How could we forget something like that?" Dahyun was studying the symbols on the wall, which now seemed familiar after her experience with the device. "We didn't forget. We were made to forget." "What do you mean?" Taeho asked.
The memories showed a war.
A terrible war that nearly destroyed everything.
And then, a decision.
She pointed to a sequence of symbols.
This tells the story.
Earth wasn't our birthplace.
It was our prison.
The team fell silent as they absorbed her words.
The Confederation, Minwoo finally said. They knew. That's why they're treating us like children, keeping us contained. They're afraid, Dahyun said. Afraid we'll remember who we were. Taeho looked at the pedestal. Should we tell Earth about this? We have to, Dahyun replied. But more importantly, we need to find the rest of the complex. This is just one room. If the architects left memories, they might have left something else too.
As they prepared to expand their excavation, Dahyun couldn't shake the feeling that they had just lit a fuse. The truth was going to change everything, not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy.
The humans hadn't evolved on Earth. They had been imprisoned there.
And now, they were starting to remember. Sungmin Choi woke with a start, his sheets soaked with sweat. The dream had been so real this time, standing on the bridge of an enormous ship, stars streaming past viewports that stretched from floor to ceiling.
He had been giving orders in a language he didn't recognize, yet somehow understood perfectly.
He rubbed his eyes and checked the time, 4:37 a.m.
This was the 5th night in a row.
The dreams had started shortly after the news from Mars broke worldwide 3 weeks ago. The discovery of the alien, or rather, ancient human, structure had divided Earth.
Some governments wanted to shut down the research immediately.
Others pushed to learn more. Meanwhile, the Galactic Confederation representatives had suddenly become very interested in Mars, demanding access to the site. Their request had been politely declined. Sungmin reached for his tablet and pulled up the news. As a military officer with high security clearance, he received updates that weren't available to the public.
A new message marked urgent had arrived during the night.
The report detailed a growing phenomenon, thousands of people worldwide experiencing vivid dreams of space travel, advanced technology, and battles among the stars.
Just like his own dreams. His phone rang, making him jump.
Colonel Choi, he answered. You need to come in, said General Min, his commanding officer.
Something's happening at Research Facility 7. The drive to the hidden facility took 40 minutes.
When Sungmin arrived, the compound was buzzing with activity despite the early hour.
Scientists in lab coats rushed between buildings while security personnel stood at high alert. Dr. Ji-woo Park met him at the entrance to the main lab.
Her eyes were bright with excitement despite obvious exhaustion. You're experiencing the dreams too, aren't you? She asked without greeting.
Sungmin nodded. How did you know? It's in your genetic profile. Come with me.
She led him through a series of security checkpoints into a laboratory where dozens of screens displayed DNA sequences, brain scans, and data streams.
3 days ago, we made a breakthrough, Ji-woo explained. Human DNA contains compressed data sequences. Like books waiting to be read. What kind of data? Sungmin asked. Technology.
History. Knowledge that was hidden inside us. She pointed to a brain scan. When the Mars team interfaced with that device, it sent a signal like a key turning in a lock. Now certain people are beginning to access the information stored in their own genes.
People like me, Sungmin said quietly. Ji-woo nodded.
You have a particularly strong marker. That's why your dreams are so vivid.
A commotion from the next room interrupted them.
A technician burst through the door.
Dr. Park. It's responding to the new frequency.
They hurried into an adjoining laboratory where a metal object sat under heavy security. It had been recovered from the Mars site, a cylinder about the size of a person's forearm, covered in the same symbols found throughout the complex.
Scientists huddled around it, adjusting equipment and taking readings. The cylinder was glowing faintly, pulsing with a blue light. We think it's some kind of key, Ji-woo explained. But we haven't been able to activate it fully.
Until now, the technician added. Sungmin felt drawn to the object. Without thinking, he stepped forward. "Colonel, please stay back," a security officer warned. But Sungmin barely heard him. The cylinder seemed to call to him. The symbols on its surface suddenly made perfect sense, instructions, clear as day. "I know how it works," he said, surprising himself. Jiwoo stared at him. "How?" "I just know." He pointed to sections of the cylinder. "This is a power source. This is a communication array. This activates the main function." The scientists exchanged glances. After a moment of hesitation, Jiwoo nodded. "Let him try." The security team reluctantly stepped aside. Sungmin approached the cylinder and placed his hands on it exactly where he knew they should go. He twisted the sections in a specific sequence, moved a hidden panel, and pressed a recessed button. The cylinder hummed to life, rising to float above the table. It projected a three-dimensional star map into the air, with certain systems highlighted in pulsing red light. "Defenses," Sungmin said, knowledge flowing through him. "These are the locations of ancient human defense systems. Still active, waiting for commands." Alarms began blaring throughout the facility. A communications officer rushed into the room. "We've got incoming transmissions. The Confederation observation post is going crazy. They're saying there are energy signatures activating across the galaxy." Outside, in orbit around Earth, the Confederation representatives watched in mounting horror as ancient systems they had thought long dormant began coming online. Emergency signals flashed between their ships as orders were relayed. 3 diplomatic missions immediately broke orbit and headed for deep space, abandoning their posts without explanation. "They're afraid of us," Sungmin said, watching the cylinder's projection. "They always have been." The awakening had begun. Across Earth, more people were remembering, more technology was activating. Humanity was reclaiming its hidden legacy, piece by piece. And the galaxy was holding its breath. Commander Jae-won Park stood tall in the center of the Confederation Council chamber. The vast room, normally filled with the quiet murmur of diplomatic discussions, now crackled with tension. Representatives from over 200 alien species watched from tiered seating that rose in a circle around him. Some leaned forward with interest. Others shifted nervously or whispered to their neighbors. "The humans request this emergency session to address recent discoveries," announced the council speaker, a tall being with crystalline features. Jae-won nodded to Hannah Kim, who activated a holographic display. Images from the Mars excavation filled the air above them, the ancient structure, the symbols, and finally, the activated devices. "For 3 months, you have treated Earth as a primitive world," Jae-won began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Today, we present evidence that changes everything." The blue-skinned ambassador Zeal rose from his seat. "These artifacts prove nothing. Your interpretation is speculation at best." "Is it?" Jae-won asked. He gestured, and new images appeared. Ancient defense satellites activating across the galaxy, each bearing the same symbols found on Mars. A ripple of alarm spread through the chamber. Several representatives stood up and began shouting in their native languages, too agitated to wait for translation. "Order," demanded the council speaker, striking a resonant crystal with a small hammer. The sound cut through the chaos, bringing silence. "The human may continue. These systems recognize human genetic signatures," Jae-won explained. "They were built by us, long ago. You've known this all along." From the highest tier, a figure moved forward into the light. Unlike the other representatives, this being resembled a tall, willowy tree with bark-like skin and branches that swayed gently though there was no wind. The chamber grew completely silent. "The archivist speaks," whispered the council speaker with reverence. The ancient being's voice sounded like rustling leaves. "The human speaks truth we have long hidden." Gasps echoed through the chamber. The archivists were the oldest species in the Confederation, keepers of galactic history. They rarely spoke in council, and never without great cause. "Then tell them the whole truth," challenged a reptilian representative. "Tell them what their ancestors did." The archivist's branches trembled slightly. "Humans once called themselves architects. Their empire spanned half the galaxy.
Their technology outpaced all others. And J1 prompted when the archivist paused. And they nearly destroyed everything in their ambition, the ancient being continued. The war of extinction lasted 300 years. Thousands of worlds burned. Entire species vanished. When the architects finally fell, the survivors of the galaxy faced a choice. Hannah stepped forward. To kill us all or imprison us? Yes, the archivist acknowledged. Some wanted your species exterminated. Others argued that even in defeat, humans possessed knowledge that should not be lost. A compromise was reached. You altered our genetics, J1 said. Hid our knowledge inside our own DNA where we couldn't access it. Then you quarantined Earth and erased our history. The archivist's branches dipped in what might have been an odd. Your violent tendencies were dampened. Your lifespan shortened. Your memories locked away. Earth was chosen as your new home, a world where you could evolve again, perhaps more wisely this time. The council erupted once more. A group of representatives from the outer rim systems rose together. The containment has failed, their speaker shouted. The defense systems are activating. We must strike now, before they remember everything. No, countered another faction. The humans have shown no aggression. This could be a new beginning. J1 raised his hands for silence. We don't want war. We don't want revenge. We only want the truth and our rightful place among the stars. You expect us to trust you? Ambassador Zeal demanded. Your kind nearly destroyed the galaxy once before. You fear what we might become, Hannah said, her voice cutting through the noise. But we are not our ancestors. The archivist moved closer, towering over the humans. The abilities dormant in your species are unlike any other. Your minds can interface directly with technology. Your creativity is unmatched. Your adaptability terrifying. These gifts nearly led to the end of all life. Yet you spared us, J1 noted. Why? Because destruction is easy, the archivist replied. Redemption is harder, but more valuable. We hoped that given time, humans might return to the stars as partners rather than conquerors. The council fell into faction arguments, some calling for immediate action against Earth, others advocating for a new approach. As the debate raged, J1 received an urgent message from Earth. More ancient technology was activating. Humanity's awakening was accelerating. We should return to our ship, Hannah whispered. This could turn dangerous quickly. J1 took one last look at the divided council. The truth was out now. The next steps would determine whether humanity's second chance among the stars would begin with peace or with war. Either way, there was no going back to the comfortable ignorance of before. The confrontation had begun. 3 months after the confrontation in the Confederation Council chamber, J1 Park stood on the observation deck of the newly completed Harmony Station. The space platform orbited Earth at a distance that would have been impossible to reach with previous human technology. Through the massive viewing window, he watched as ships from 7 different alien species approached the docking bays. The Trilaxian trade delegation has requested permission to board, reported Hannah Kim, now Earth's chief diplomatic officer. Permission granted, J1 said. And the others? All on schedule. Even the Zovians have decided to attend. J1 raised an eyebrow. The same Zovians who wanted to destroy Earth 3 months ago? Hannah smiled. Fear can change to curiosity when given enough time. The weeks following the council confrontation had been tense. Several Confederation factions had pushed for military action against Earth. But then the ancient defense systems had fully activated, revealing themselves across the galaxy. Massive orbital platforms, hidden asteroid bases, and automated sentinel ships all responding to human commands. Earth possessed power that could challenge the entire Confederation. Instead of using this advantage for dominance, J1 had proposed peace. Earth wanted recognition, not war. Knowledge, not revenge. Commander, Dr. Dahyun Lee has arrived from Mars, a young officer announced. Dahyun entered the observation deck with an air of excitement.
The archaeologist who had first touched the ancient interface now headed humanity's historical reclamation project.
The translation of the archives is progressing faster than expected, she reported. We've recovered medical knowledge that could extend human lifespan by at least 50 years. And the transportation technology is revolutionary. J1 nodded. What about the genetic modifications the Confederation made to us?
We understand them now, Dahyun replied. Some humans want to reverse everything, restore our original abilities completely. Others are more cautious.
And you? Hannah asked. Dahyun looked out at the stars. I think we should move slowly. Our ancestors had great power but used it unwisely. We need to remember the past without becoming trapped by it. A tone signaled the arrival of the first alien delegation. The three turned to see the Trilaxian representatives enter, insect-like beings who had once been among humanity's fiercest opponents in the council. Welcome to Harmony Station, J1 greeted them in their own clicking language, one of the many gifts from the recovered knowledge. The lead Trilaxian's antennae quivered. We come seeking alliance. The balance of power has shifted. Old enemies must become new friends. Not out of fear, J1 replied. But out of mutual respect. After the formal greetings, J1 excused himself and walked to a private meeting room where Sungmin Choi waited. The military officer who had first activated the defense systems now coordinated Earth's security. The last dormant outpost came online yesterday, Sungmin reported. We now control a defensive network spanning 16 star systems. Control but not use, J1 emphasized. Unless absolutely necessary. Sungmin nodded. The council is sending their highest representatives to next week's summit. They're finally taking us seriously. Later that evening, as Earth rotated into night below them, J1 visited the station's central garden. The space had been designed to blend plants from Earth with specimens from other worlds, a living symbol of the new path forward. He found Dahyun there, studying a bioluminescent flower from the archivist homeworld. Thinking about our ancestors, he asked. About their mistakes, she replied. The archives show they became obsessed with expansion and power. They forgot why knowledge matters. And why does it matter? To improve life, not just to control it. She touched the glowing petals gently. The Confederation was wrong to hide our history from us. But perhaps they were right about one thing: we needed time to grow differently. On Earth below, cities gleamed with new light as ancient technology merged with human innovation. Schools taught the true history of humanity's stellar past. And in laboratories around the world, scientists worked to understand the knowledge hidden in their very cells, not to conquer, but to heal and build. A week later, J1 stood before the assembled representatives of the Galactic Confederation, no longer in their chamber but on humanity's own station. We were conquerors once, he told them. But our time on Earth has taught us something the old empire never knew: how to build rather than dominate. We do not seek to reclaim our ancestors' empire. We seek to create something better. As the summit began, new agreements were formed. Old fears began to fade. And humanity took its first true steps into a renaissance among the stars, not as the feared architects of the past, but as builders of a different future. The secret empire had been unveiled, but its legacy would be transformed by those who remembered both its glory and its failures.